Hey everyone, this is Nina at Walla Stamping. Thanks for joining me today. This is the project that I would like to share with you, and this speaks to me and says winter snowy day. I absolutely love the way that this box turned out, and it's very glittery and glitzy, and that is right up my alley. So I was very happy with how this turned out. So now let me tell you that this is not just a box. When you flip open the lid, there's a sentiment on the inside, so it's a combo. It's a card and a box. When you slide this box out, it holds perfectly 2 of the Ghirardelli chocolate squares. So that's a nice little treat to put in someone's stocking for just a little stocking stuffer, or people that you work with, or just whoever you'd want to give this to. So let me set this aside and I will show you how to create this box. So the supplies you're going to need are as follows. The box base is, or the outside that has the flap on top, is a piece of Very Vanilla, and it is cut at 7 15/16 by 3. The insert to the box is also Very Vanilla. It's 5 3/16 by 3 3/16. You're going to need a couple of pieces for the layering on top. The Dazzling Diamonds is cut to 2 3/4 by 1 3/4. And this is Whisper White, and it is cut to 2 1/2 by 1 1/2. Then you're also going to need a few little scrap pieces. A piece of Whisper White, because you'll be cutting out some of the pine needles, or I call them pine branches, as well as a piece of Dazzling Diamonds, because there's a couple of pine branches cut out of that. And you'll also need a piece of the Silver Glimmer paper to cut out a bow, and you'll also be cutting a secondary bow with your other Whisper White. So let me move all of this out of the way and get started. I'm going to grab my Simply scoring tool, and I'm going to start with the outside portion of the box and put it in my scoring board landscape. And these are your scoring lines. The first one is going to be at 5/8 of an inch, then at 2 5/8, 3 1/4, 5 1/4, 5 7/8. Sorry, Sugar barked at somebody. I do not know why. Sorry about that. When Sugar barked, she got my concentration off, and I scored that in the wrong place. It's okay. Just for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to pay any attention to that boo-boo. So the last score mark here was at 5 1/4, and then your next one is at 5 7/8, and I put it at 6 7/8 because Sugar got me all flustered. So that is the outside. The insert portion of the box, I'm going to put in landscape first. Then score it at 1/2 inch, then at 1 1/8 inch. I'm going to flip it around to the opposite side and repeat that. 1/2 inch, 1 1/8. Then I'm going to turn it so that it's portrait, and I'm going to score it at 5/8 on this side. Flip it around to the opposite side and score it at 5/8 of an inch again. So that's all the scoring that you're going to need to do. Let me put my board away. So let's go ahead and get these pieces folded and burnished, but let me back up a step. I want to show you some of the other things you're going to need. In order to make the pine branches, I'm using some of the Pretty Pines thinlits. I'm going to be using the medium and the small thinlit for the pine branches, and the small bow for the bow on top of the package. I'm also going to be using our Versamark ink and our embossing buddy, a block C to stamp my sentiment, and the stamp is, well, you probably can't see it. It says Making Spirits Bright, and it comes from the 10 of Tags stamp set, and it's this stamp right here. I love all the fonts in this stamp set. I have used it several times since I have had it to create several projects. And then we have some embellishments. It's the metal rimmed pearls. So that's everything you're going to need. Also a corner rounder. Get this out of the way. Okay, so let's go ahead and get everything folded and burnished. And what we're going to do, I'm going to try to rub this out so that it won't get me confused or you either. So that doesn't show up as much. Good. So let's get all of our score lines folded and burnished. And this is the outside portion of the box. Okay, set that aside. Now normally I like to do my trimming and cutting before I fold and burnish, but because these score lines are only 1/2 inch and 5/8 of an inch, I find it easier to go ahead and do that folding and burnishing before I cut. I just think it's easier, but if you're okay with cutting it and then doing this afterwards, then that's good. And sometimes I end up doing that just because I forget, but either way, it works fine. All right, so this is how this piece gets trimmed. Straight up this score line, stopping at the second one. Then this little tidbit here, we don't need it. Just get rid of that square. Then we're going to cut wedges out of that one there. Do the same thing over here. Cut that piece off and cut some wedges. Turn it around to the opposite end and do the exact same thing. This is a fairly straightforward, quick and easy box to do. So if you needed a quick gift for several people, this would be a good one to do, and it would be very impressive because even though it doesn't take a whole lot of time to create it, it sure does look like it did. So now we're going to round these corners, and I will show you why once we put the box together. You may not have noticed when I pulled that out of the box before to show you that it had the rounded corners, but you'll see in just a minute. Now for this, I'm just going to use some of my multi-purpose glue to glue these little tabs in place. I find it easier to use glue as opposed to a dry adhesive on a tab that's this small. And the glue dries very quickly, so I just hold it in place for, I don't know, 4 or 5 seconds until it starts to adhere to the paper, and then I just let go. And I would say within 2 minutes at the most, this glue is set. So I do like using the multi-purpose glue sometimes for that very reason. Okay, so this was the reason I wanted to round those corners, and I spoke too quick on that, didn't I? It come loose. Okay, so that's the reason I wanted to round the corners. I feel like it gives it a little more professional finished look, okay? So next what we're going to do is I'm going to grab all of my pieces of paper that I'm going to be cutting shapes from and get those cut out. So I'm going to run over to my Big Shot and get everything cut out, and I will be right back. Okay, so what you're going to want to end up with are 2 of the medium size pine needles in the Whisper White, as well as 2 of the small, and 1 of the large ones you're going to leave plain, and 3 of them we're going to silver emboss. Then you'll want 1 medium and 1 small cut out of the Dazzling Diamonds. You'll want your Whisper White bow and also your Silver Glimmer paper bow. And if you notice here, inside the bow there are 2 kind of little raindrop shapes. You'll want to pop those out, but hang on to them because you will be using them in the bouquet that you put on top of the box. So let me show you how I emboss these once I've gotten them cut out. So I'm going to set my Versamark there, grab my, I don't think I mentioned this, you'll need silver embossing powder. I know I forgot to tell you that at the beginning. So that's what you're going to need to do your embossing. And the way that I did this was I just laid my little embellishment there right on top of my Versamark pad, and I just took the eraser end of a pencil and I just tapped lightly on there into that pad to make sure that I get that Versamark ink covered all over the outside of that pine branch. Just look at it and make sure it looks good and saturated. set this aside. Then I will cover this with my silver embossing powder. And it kind of gets buried under there. So I'm just going to grab my piercing tool and use that to lift it out. And I don't worry about trying to get a lot of that embossing powder off. I really want it to be thick on there, okay? So then what I do, instead of having to put all of that powder back into its container, I just lay my second branch on there, give it some taps, make sure it gets covered nicely, and then I'm just going to lay it down in that embossing powder, move it around a little bit, lift it up, make sure it got covered nicely, and repeat that with the third one. Then we will use our heat tool to emboss. And a little bit's probably going to get on the back as you tamp with your eraser, because the Versamark is going to get on your eraser, but it's not going to hurt anything, so don't worry about it if that happens. Okay, I'm going to end up with embossing powder all over me too, and it's all right. I will live through it. All right, so let me move these things out of the way and then get my excess powder back into its house. And I try to just continue to use my piercing tool to handle it so that I don't get the powder off on my fingers. So let me get this embossed. Okay, so that was not hard at all, and look how gorgeous they are. They come out looking like they're made of metal. I think they're gorgeous. I love, love, love it. So since I have my embossing powder and heat tool all warmed up, I think I'll go ahead and show you how to do the embossing on your box base. So this is the area you want your sentiment in. This is the mark that is 5/8 of an inch score line. So this is how your box will go together, just like that. And that'll flap over. So this is the area where you want your sentiment to go. So I'm going to use my embossing buddy and rub it on there really good. This keeps your embossing powder from sticking anywhere other than where you put your Versamark. So let's get my stamp inked up really good with that Versamark. Make sure I've got it straight. And because I can't look directly over the top of it without getting in the frame, I'm just hoping and guessing that I got that where it needs to go. So let's pour our embossing powder on there. And then we'll take the heat tool to it, tap off the excess, and sometimes you may be able to see there's a little bit of embossing powder that tried to hang on there. Just take a paintbrush or something like that that you can get in there with and just brush that away, because when your heat tool hits that, it will make it silver, and if you don't want that there, you'll want to brush it away. All right, there you go. So let me move this out of the way real quick. We don't need it anymore. All right, now it is assembly time. And what I'm going to do is I have found that I like to trim off just a little bitty bit off this end, like right around a 1/16 of an inch, because it makes the box go together just a wee little bit easier. All right, so for this I am going to use my fast fuse. Okay, so I just lay my box over like this. Then I take this portion and fold it down. What I like to do after I've got the box put together is I like to flatten it out and use my bone folder and push it down really hard to make sure that I am getting really good creases in this. That way all the corners are going to look really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and slide my insert into the box. That fits in there so nicely. Then we're going to put our layering on the top of the box, which was the Dazzling Diamonds and the Whisper White. And I'm just going to use my fast fuse for this as well. Just put a couple of 3 strips on the back. Center that up in the middle of the box. Okay, then take your piece of Whisper White and stick that on top of your Dazzling Diamonds. Okay, now what we're going to want to do next is break out the mini glue dots, because this portion of the project uses a lot of them. And what I like to do is just get all of my pieces, my like pieces together, and just kind of get organized before I start assembling this. So this is my plain white one. I'm going to put it on the very bottom. And I'm going to grab my tool again here so that I can grab these glue dots, and I'm just going to stick that glue dot there. Then I will take this Dazzling Diamonds one and lay it on top and stick it down to that glue dot. And I'm not kidding y'all, this takes a lot of glue dots to put this thing together, but it is okay. It's all worth it. And glue dots are so quick and easy to use. Why not? And I just kind of eyeball it and start looking at it and decide how I like it as I'm putting it together. Then take another one of these, put it over here on this side. And on the first one, I actually had 2 of the Dazzling Diamond small ones. On this one, I think I only made 1. So I will have the correct number of these in the instructions. You should actually have 2 of the small Dazzling Diamond ones instead of just 1. So there's the pine branches put together. Now let's do the bow. And again, you're going to be using your glue dots. So what I do is I put a glue dot right there in the middle, and then the way that I would like to put this together is I put the Whisper White on there just like that, so that you can see that Dazzling Diamonds from behind it. It gives it a little more of a 3-dimensional look. And then again, a glue dot right there in the middle. Stick your bow on there. Then these 2 little raindrop or teardrop shapes are going to go on next. So I put my glue dot just at the base of the bow, and both of those you can get the tips into that glue dot there to get those stuck down. Then the last thing you're going to need is one of your pearls, and I use the largest one. And these do have adhesive on the back. There's just a little piece of paper there that you have to flip off. Okay, and then just stick that right in the center of your bow. And look, my glue dot's sticking to my surface. All right, let's move these out of the way. Then I'm going to flip this over, put a glue dot up here at the top, and I like to put 1 or 2 down in here just to make sure that it does stay in place. You don't have to do this. If you're comfortable with using just 1 glue dot, then that's fine, but I just like the extra security of knowing it's going to stay put. Then just gently push down and your box is complete. So I hope that you enjoyed the video today. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel, and I'd love it if you'd give me a thumbs up. And if you don't currently have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would appreciate being your demonstrator. Below this video, I will have a link to my blog where you can go and get the instruction sheet and measurements for this project. And there will also be a link there where you can purchase these products online. So thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.